The twin sons of Redstone Mesa were setting behind the rocky hills when Jake Morrison finally wiped the grease off his hands. It had been another long day at the fuel station, fixing broken equipment and pumping fuel for the few ships that stopped at this remote colony. Most days, Jake saw maybe 3 or 4 customers. The mining outpost was small, and not many travelers came this far out into frontier space. Jake was a tall man with sun-worn skin and tired eyes. He had come to Redstone Mesa 5 years ago looking for a quiet place to start over after his divorce. The fuel station came with a small repair shop, and that was enough to keep him busy. He liked the silence out here. No crowds, no questions, just him and the red desert stretching for miles in every direction. He was closing the heavy metal doors of his shop when he heard it. A deep rumbling sound, like thunder rolling across the sky. Jake looked up and saw something that made his heart stop. A massive shadow passed overhead, blocking out the remaining sunlight. The shape was unlike any ship he had seen before. It had wings, enormous wings that seemed to stretch across half the sky. The ship descended fast, too fast. Jake stumbled backward as it landed near his fuel pumps with a thunderous crash. Red dust exploded into the air, and the ground shook under his feet. His windows rattled in their frames. When the dust began to settle, Jake could finally see what had landed at his station. It was not like any ship in the human fleet. The vessel was crafted to look like a living creature, all curved plates and sharp edges that resembled scales. Steam hissed from vents along its sides, and it was huge. Easily 3 times the size of the largest cargo haulers that occasionally stopped for fuel. Jake knew what this was. He had seen pictures in the colony briefings. This was a Velcran ship, and the Velcrans were dragons. His first instinct was to run inside and lock every door. The Velcrans had a reputation across the galaxy. They were warriors, conquerors who had crushed dozens of civilizations. Their ships were weapons, and their soldiers were living nightmares covered in armor-like scales. Most species avoided them completely. Some colonies had standing orders to evacuate if a Velcran vessel approached. But Jake did not run. Something kept him frozen in place as a door on the side of the ship began to open. Steam poured out, and then a figure emerged. The dragon was enormous. Even hunched over, she stood at least 12 feet tall. Her scales were deep crimson, like old blood, and they caught the fading sunlight as she moved. Wings, currently folded against her back, would probably span 30 feet if fully extended. Her head was angular and fierce, with horns curving back from her skull and eyes that glowed like molten gold. But something was wrong. Jake could see it immediately. The dragon moved slowly, each step careful and painful. She favored her left side, and her breathing came in heavy, labored sounds. One wing hung slightly lower than the other. This was not the mighty warrior from the briefing videos. This was someone who was hurt and exhausted. The dragon stopped about 20 feet from Jake. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other. Jake noticed a metal collar around her neck with a small device attached to it. A translator, he realized. Then the dragon spoke. Her voice was deep and rumbling, like rocks grinding together, but the translator converted it into flat, mechanical words. "I need help, please." Jake blinked. Of all the things he expected a Velcran to say, this was not one of them. The dragons did not ask for help. They took what they wanted. At least, that was what everyone said. "You need fuel?" Jake asked, his voice shakier than he wanted it to be. The dragon shook her massive head slowly. "Not fuel. Help. Inside ship, please. I have searched 5 systems. No one will help, but I see human station. Humans are different. Maybe humans will help." Jake swallowed hard. Every training video he had ever watched told him to contact colony security immediately. Velcrans were dangerous, unpredictable. This could be a trap. But he looked at the dragon's eyes again. Really looked at them. He saw something there that he recognized. Desperation. Fear. the same look he had seen in injured animals back on his family's farm when he was growing up. "What kind of help do you need?" Jake asked carefully. The dragon seemed to sag with relief. "My name is Tornash. Inside my ship is Young One. She is sick, very sick. I have tried to find medical help, but all stations refuse. They see Velcran's ship and attack, or they close doors. She is dying. I do not know what else to do." Jake felt his stomach drop. There was a child on that ship, a sick child. He thought about turning away, about calling security and letting them handle it. That would be the safe choice, the smart choice. Instead, he thought about his father's farm. He remembered being 8 years old and finding a wounded hawk in the back field. His father had told him to leave it alone, that wild things were dangerous and helping them was foolish. But Jake had spent 3 weeks nursing that hawk back to health anyway. His father had mocked him for it, called him soft. But when the hawk flew away, finally healed, Jake had felt something his father never seemed to understand. Some things were more important than being safe or smart. "Show me," Jake said. Tornash led Jake toward her ship, moving slowly up the boarding ramp. Jake followed, his heart pounding in his chest. The entrance was tall enough for the dragon, but he still had to duck his head under the curved doorway. Inside, the ship was dim and warm, lit by soft amber lights along the walls. The interior looked nothing like a human vessel. Everything was larger, built for creatures twice his size. The walls were smooth and dark, with panels that seemed to grow organically from the structure. But what struck Jake most was how cluttered everything appeared. Medical equipment was stacked in corners, some of it clearly broken. Wires and tubes ran across the floor in tangled masses. This was not a warship. This was a desperate mobile hospital. Tornash moved through a narrow corridor, her wings tucked tight against her body. Jake followed, stepping over cables and around equipment he did not recognize. The air smelled strange, like heated metal and something sweet he could not identify. They entered a larger chamber, and Jake stopped breathing for a moment. In the center of the room, on a platform covered with blankets and padding, lay a small dragon. Well, small compared to Tornash. The young one was still bigger than Jake, perhaps 7 feet long from nose to tail. But she looked so fragile. Her scales were dull gray instead of the vibrant colors dragons should have. They looked rough and crystallized, like someone had covered her in broken glass. Her breathing was shallow and ragged. Even from across the room, Jake could see her chest struggling to rise and fall. One small wing twitched occasionally, but the other lay completely still. "This is Koresh," Tornash said quietly, her mechanical translator somehow conveying sadness. "She is 9 cycles old, in human years perhaps 12. 2 months ago, her scales began to change. Now the crystal grows inside her body. It spreads more each day." Jake moved closer carefully. The young dragon's eyes were closed, but her face twisted occasionally, as if she were in pain, even while unconscious. He had never seen anything like the crystallization covering her scales. It looked like her own body was turning to stone. "What is it?" Jake asked. "Scale rot," Tornash answered. "It is genetic condition, very rare. It can be treated in Velcran home systems, but we were far from home when symptoms appeared. I have tried to reach medical facilities. Every station refused us. Some attacked. Others simply closed their doors when they saw my ship approach." Jake looked at all the equipment scattered around the room. "You have been trying to treat her yourself?" "Yes, I have medical knowledge from warrior training. But I am not doctor. Nothing I do helps. The crystal spreads. Soon it will reach her heart and lungs completely. Then she will die." Tornash's voice broke slightly, even through the mechanical translation. Jake felt a weight settle in his chest. He was just a mechanic. He fixed engines and fuel pumps, not living creatures, especially not alien living creatures with biology he knew nothing about. But looking at Koresh, struggling to breathe, He knew he could not just walk away. "I don't have medical training for this," Jake admitted, "but I know someone who might be able to help. She's a xenobiologist at the research station about 300 miles from here." Tornash's head turned sharply toward him, hope lighting in her golden eyes. "She would help Velcron?" Jake hesitated. "I don't know. But she cares about saving lives. That much I know about her." He did not mention that the xenobiologist was his ex-wife, or that they had not spoken in 2 years. "Please," Tornash said simply. "I will give anything, do anything. Just please help her." Jake pulled out his communication device and stared at it for a long moment. Linda Patterson was the last person he wanted to call. Their divorce had been bitter and painful. She had wanted to stay on Earth and continue her research at prestigious universities. He had wanted a simpler life, away from crowds and expectations. They had both said terrible things in the end, things he still regretted. But this was not about him. This was about a dying child. He pressed the call button. The device rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. "This is Dr. Patterson. Linda, it's Jake." There was a long pause. "Jake? I have not heard from you in 2 years. What do you want?" He took a breath. "I need your help. There is a young Velcron here who is dying from scale rot. I know you studied cross-species biology. Is there anything that can be done?" "A Velcron? Jake, what have you gotten yourself into? Those creatures are dangerous. You should contact colony security immediately." "There is a child dying in front of me, Linda. A 12-year-old child. Can you help or not?" Another pause. Longer this time. Jake heard Linda take a deep breath through the communicator. "Scale rot is treatable, but it requires specific enzymes from Velcran home territory. Without those, the crystallization will continue until organ failure. How advanced is it?" Jake looked at Koresh, at the gray crystals covering most of her body. "Very advanced. Her scales are mostly crystallized, and her breathing is labored. Then she does not have much time." Linda was quiet for a moment. "I am coming. I have some research materials that might help. But Jake, I cannot promise anything. This is beyond anything I have actually treated before. Just please come. And Linda, thank you." "Do not thank me yet. Just keep her stable until I arrive. I will be there in 3 hours." The communication cut off. Jake turned to Tornash. "Help is coming. A doctor who knows about alien biology. She will be here in 3 hours." Tornash lowered her massive head, and Jake realized the dragon was crying. Tears ran down her scaled face, reflecting the amber lights. "Thank you, human. Thank you. I did not think anyone would help us." The 3 hours waiting for Linda felt like 3 days. Jake stayed with Tornash and Koresh, doing what little he could to help. He brought water for Tornash, who had not eaten or drunk properly in days. The dragon accepted it gratefully. Though her attention never left the young one on the platform. Jake learned more about them while they waited. Koresh was not Tornash's biological daughter. The young dragon had been found in the ruins of a colony destroyed by war between 2 other species. Tornash had been part of a Velcron military patrol that discovered the destruction. Everyone told Tornash to leave the orphan behind. Velcrons did not adopt outsiders. They did not show such weakness. But Tornash had picked up the frightened, injured child anyway and taken her home. Other Velcrons mocked her for it. They called her soft and foolish. Warriors did not play caretaker to orphans. But Tornash did not care what they said. She had looked into Koresh's terrified eyes and knew she could not abandon her. Jake understood that feeling. His own father had mocked him the same way for caring about injured animals, for wanting to help things that others considered worthless or too much trouble. Sitting in that ship with a dragon and her dying adopted daughter, Jake realized he and Tornash were not so different. The sound of an approaching vehicle finally broke the silence. Jake went outside and saw Linda's research transport landing near his station. She emerged carrying two large cases of equipment, her brown hair pulled back in the same practical style she had always worn. She looked older than he remembered, with new lines around her eyes, but her expression was all business. "Where is the patient?" Linda asked, not wasting time on greetings. Jake led her into the ship. If Linda was intimidated by Tornash's size or appearance, she did not show it. She went straight to Kiresh and began examining her with quick, efficient movements. She pulled out scanning equipment from her cases and ran it over the young dragon's body, her face growing more concerned with each reading. "This is worse than I thought," Linda said quietly. "The crystallization has reached her major organs. Her heart function is at 60%. Her lungs are compromised. She has days at most, maybe less." Tornash made a sound like rocks breaking. "Is there nothing you can do?" Linda was quiet for a moment, studying her scanner readings. "The standard treatment requires enzymes produced in Velcran territory. Those enzymes break down the crystal formation and allow the scales to regenerate properly. But the nearest Velcran world is 3 weeks away by the fastest ship. She does not have 3 weeks." "Then she will die," Tornash said, her voice hollow. "Wait." Linda pulled out a datapad and began scrolling through information quickly. "I have been researching cross-species medical applications for years. There might be another way. The enzymes you need are similar in structure to compounds found in several other species. I might be able to synthesize a substitute using what I have here and what you have in your medical supplies." Jake felt hope rise in his chest. "You can make the treatment here?" "Maybe. But there is a problem." Linda looked up at Tornash. "This has never been tested. I would be creating a new compound based on theory and similarities in molecular structure. It might work, or it might accelerate the crystallization instead of stopping it." "There is no way to know until we try." Tornash looked down at Kiresh, who whimpered softly in her sleep. The dragon reached out and gently stroked the young one's head with one clawed hand. "If we do nothing, she dies in days. If we try your treatment, she might die sooner but might also live. That is still better than waiting for the end." "I need to be clear," Linda said firmly. "If this goes wrong, it could be very painful for her. The crystallization could spread through her entire body in hours instead of days. You need to understand what you are agreeing to." "I understand," Tornash said. "Please try. Please save my daughter." Linda nodded and immediately began unpacking her equipment. She set up a portable laboratory on one of the clear surfaces in the chamber. Jake watched as she worked with chemicals and compounds he did not recognize, mixing and measuring with absolute precision. "Jake, I need you to help," Linda said without looking up from her work. "We need to modify some of this medical equipment to work with Velcran biology. Can you handle that?" "Tell me what you need." For the next 2 hours, they worked together. Linda synthesized the enzyme substitute, while Jake modified the medical delivery system. Tornash provided information about Velcran biology and helped translate medical data from her own supplies. It felt strange, the three of them working side by side. A human mechanic, a human scientist, and a dragon warrior, all focused on the same desperate goal. Finally, Linda held up a syringe filled with glowing blue liquid. "This is it, the substitute enzyme. If it works, it should break down the crystallization and allow her body to heal. If it does not work—" She did not finish the sentence. Tornash gently lifted Kiresh into a better position. The young dragon stirred slightly, her eyes opening just a crack. "Mother," she whispered in the Velcran language. "I am here, little flame," Tornash replied softly. "You are going to be well. Just hold on a little longer." Linda approached with the syringe. Jake helped her find the right place to inject the compound, using the scanners to locate a major blood vessel. His hands were steady even though his heart was racing. This had to work. It had to. The needle pierced Koresh's scales, and Linda slowly pushed the blue liquid into her body. They all held their breath, waiting. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Koresh's body tensed. Her eyes opened wide, glowing with pain. The crystals on her scales began to glow too, spreading faster across her body. More areas turned gray and hard. "No," Tornash breathed. "No, please, no." The crystallization was accelerating. Koresh cried out in pain as the crystals spread across her body like frost racing across glass. Her small claws scraped against the platform, and her tail thrashed weakly. Tornash held her close, making soothing sounds that came from deep in her chest. The dragon sang in her own language, a melody that sounded like thunder mixed with wind chimes. Linda watched her scanner with intense focus, her face pale. "The compound is reacting with her system, but not the way I expected. The crystallization is spreading too fast." Jake felt helpless. They had tried to save her, and instead they might have killed her faster. He looked at Koresh's face, twisted in agony, and felt his heart breaking. This child had done nothing wrong. She deserved to live. "Can we reverse it?" Jake asked desperately. "Give her something to stop the reaction?" "If I introduce another compound now, it could make things worse," Linda said, her voice strained. "We have to wait and see if her body can process the treatment. If the enzyme substitute works, it needs time to break down the existing crystals before it can prevent new growth." Tornash continued singing, rocking Koresh gently. Tears streamed down the dragon's face, but she did not stop the lullaby. Jake recognized the look on her face. It was the expression of someone saying goodbye. Minutes passed like hours. Koresh's breathing became more labored. More of her scales turned gray and hard. Jake found himself praying to gods he was not sure he believed in, begging for this child to survive. Then something changed. The crystals that had been spreading so rapidly began to slow. Linda noticed it first on her scanner. "Wait," she said quietly. "Look at this. The crystallization rate is decreasing." Jake moved closer to see the scanner display. The spreading had stopped. For a moment, nothing else happened. Then, slowly, the gray crystals on Koresh's neck began to clear. Color returned to her scales, the rich bronze that young Velcrans were supposed to have. "It is working," Tornash whispered, not daring to believe it. "It is working." The change spread gradually. The crystals broke down and dissolved, revealing healthy scales beneath. Koresh's breathing became easier. The tension in her small body began to relax. Her eyes, which had been squeezed shut in pain, slowly opened. They were clear and golden, no longer clouded with sickness. "Mother?" Koresh said weakly, her translator collar converting the Velcran word. "I am here, little flame," Tornash replied, her voice breaking with relief. "You are safe now. You are going to be well." Linda checked her readings again and again, as if she could not believe what she was seeing. "The enzyme substitute is working better than I hoped. Her organ function is improving. The crystallization is reversing throughout her entire body." Jake felt his legs go weak with relief. He sat down heavily on a nearby crate, suddenly aware that he had been holding his breath. They had done it. Against all odds, they had actually saved her. Over the next 3 days, Koresh continued to improve. Linda stayed at the station, monitoring the young dragon's progress and administering follow-up treatments. The research station sent additional supplies, though many of the staff were nervous about having Velcrans so close to their facility. Jake kept his station running while helping with Koresh's care. He brought food and supplies, fixed equipment that broke down, and generally made himself useful. He and Linda worked together smoothly, falling into old patterns from their marriage. They did not talk about the past, focusing instead on their patient. Koresh was curious and playful when she felt better. She asked Jake hundreds of questions about humans, about Earth, about his fuel station. She told him stories about her homeworld before it was destroyed and about Tornash rescuing her. The young dragon had a bright spirit that reminded Jake why saving her had mattered so much. But on the fourth day, everything changed. 3 Velcran military ships appeared in the sky above Redstone Mesa. They landed near Jake's station in formation, their weapons clearly visible. Tornash saw them coming, and her whole body went rigid with tension. "The High Command has found us," she said quietly. A group of Velcran warriors emerged from the lead ship. They were even larger than Tornash, covered in battle armor that gleamed like black metal. Their leader was a massive dragon with dark blue scales and scars covering half his face. His translator collar activated as he approached. "Tornash," the leader said, his voice cold. "I am Commander Vrex of the High Command. You have been absent from your duties for 4 months. You ignored recall orders. You brought shame to our people by begging lesser species for help. Explain yourself." Tornash stood straight, though Jake could see her trembling slightly. "I did what was necessary to save Koresh's life, Commander. No Velcran facility would help us. I had no choice." "You had a choice," Vrex replied. "You could have accepted that the weak do not survive. Instead, you degraded yourself and our entire species by crawling to humans for aid. You will return home immediately to face judgment. The hatchling will be evaluated to determine if she is worth the resources you wasted." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. He stepped forward, positioning himself between Vrex and the ship where Koresh was resting. "She is not going anywhere," Jake said firmly. "Koresh needs another week of treatment. Her recovery is not complete. I will not let you take her before she is healthy." Vrex looked down at Jake as if noticing an insect. "You dare stand against me, human? You are barely worth the effort to crush." "Maybe," Jake said, not moving. "But that child in there almost died because your people were too proud to help her. Tornash saved her life by asking for help. There is nothing shameful about protecting someone you love." Vrex stared at Jake with eyes that burned like fire. The other Velcran warriors moved closer, forming a semicircle around them. Jake could feel the heat radiating from their bodies. His survival instincts screamed at him to back down, to apologize, to get out of the way. But he thought about Koresh, still recovering inside the ship. He thought about how close she had come to dying because no one would help. He stayed exactly where he was. "In our culture," Vrex said slowly, "your defiance would be answered with combat. You would be destroyed in seconds." "Probably," Jake agreed. "But I am not threatening you or challenging you to fight. I am simply telling you that Koresh needs more medical care. Taking her now could endanger her recovery. That is just a fact." Linda stepped up beside Jake, holding her medical scanner. "He is right. I can show you the data. Her enzyme levels are still stabilizing. Interrupting treatment now could cause a relapse. She needs at least 6 more days of monitoring and follow-up injections." Vrex looked at Linda's scanner, then back at Jake. The dragon seemed genuinely confused. "You would risk your life for a Velcran hatchling you met 4 days ago? This makes no sense." "What do you gain from this?" "I gain nothing," Jake said. "But she is a child who deserves to grow up healthy. That matters more than my fear or your pride." One of the other warriors growled something in the Velcran language. Vrex raised a clawed hand, silencing him. The commander studied Jake with an expression that was hard to read. "You are either very brave or very foolish, human," Vrex said finally. He turned to Tornash. "You claimed humans would help when our own people would not. I did not believe you. I thought you were making excuses for your weakness." Tornash raised her head. "I am not weak for saving my daughter, Commander. I did what any true parent would do. If our people are too proud to help their own children, then perhaps our pride is the real weakness." Vrex was silent for a long moment. Jake could see something shifting behind the dragon's eyes, some internal struggle. Finally, Vrex spoke again. show me the treatment data. I want to see what these humans did. Linda led Vrex into the ship, explaining the medical procedures as they walked. Jake followed, his heart still pounding. Inside, Koresh was sitting up on her platform, her bronze scales gleaming with health. When she saw the Velcran warriors, she moved closer to Tornash nervously. Linda showed Vrex her research, explaining how she had synthesized the enzyme substitute. She displayed before and after scans, showing Koresh's deteriorating condition and her remarkable recovery. Vrex examined everything carefully, asking technical questions that showed he understood more about medicine than Jake expected. Our own doctors said scale rot this advanced was untreatable without the home enzymes, Vrex said quietly. You found a solution using substitute compounds and alien medical knowledge. You saved her life when our superior technology and resources could not. I had help, Linda said. Tornash provided essential biological data. Jake modified the equipment to work properly. And Koresh herself fought hard to survive. It was a team effort. Vrex looked at Koresh, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. The young dragon smiled shyly at him. She was just a child, innocent and full of life because 3 people from 2 different species had refused to give up on her. I came here to retrieve a warrior who abandoned her duties, Vrex said slowly. I expected to find shame and weakness. Instead, I find that Tornash acted with more courage than I understood. She faced rejection and danger to protect her child, and these humans showed honor by helping when they gained nothing from it. He turned to face Jake and Linda directly. The Velcran people have conquered many worlds. We pride ourselves on our strength and our military power. But we have become so focused on appearing strong that we forgot how to actually protect those who need us most. You humans taught us something today. Vrex reached up and removed something from his armor. It was a medallion, marked with symbols Jake did not recognize. The commander held it out to Jake. This is a mark of honor from the Velcran High Command. It means you are considered a friend to our people. You and Dr. Patterson have earned something no other species has earned in 300 years, our respect. Jake took the medallion carefully. It was warm and surprisingly heavy. I just helped a sick kid. That is what anyone should do. But most would not, Vrex said. Most saw a Velcran ship and attacked or ran away. You saw a child who needed help. That is the difference. He turned to his warriors. We will remain here until Dr. Patterson confirms the hatchling is fully recovered. We will assist in any way needed. Over the next 6 days, an unlikely cooperation formed. Velcran warriors helped Linda with medical monitoring. They shared biological data that helped her refine the treatment. Vrex himself spent hours talking with Jake, learning about human culture and philosophy. The Dragon Commander was fascinated by the idea that humans valued compassion and cooperation as much as strength. Koresh recovered completely, her scales bright and her energy boundless. She played around Jake's station, careful not to break anything with her growing wings. She taught Jake words in the Velcran language, and he taught her about earth animals and plants. When it was finally time for them to leave, Koresh approached Jake shyly. She reached up and pulled a scale from her shoulder, wincing slightly. Velcran tradition said that scales shed during recovery carried luck and protection. She pressed it into Jake's hand. Thank you for saving me, Koresh said. I will never forget you. Tornash embraced Jake carefully, her massive arms gentle despite their strength. You gave me back my daughter. I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Just take care of her, Jake said. That is payment enough. Vrex was the last to leave. He clasped Jake's shoulder with one clawed hand. The Velcran High Command will propose a formal alliance with humanity. We have much to learn from your species, and we will make sure that no Velcran ever refuses help to a child in need again, regardless of their species. The 3 Velcran ships lifted off, carrying Tornash and Kiresh home. Jake and Linda stood together, watching them disappear into the sky. Around them, more ships were already arriving. Word had spread about the human who helped a dragon. Jake's quiet station was quiet no more. "We make a good team," Linda said softly. "We always did." Jake looked at her and smiled. "Maybe we should try working together again. Properly this time." "I would like that," Linda replied. Above them, the stars shone bright over Redstone Mesa. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was watching humanity with new eyes. All because one tired dragon had asked for help, and one human had said yes. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could change everything.